coming through clear? Can you hear me? Thumbs up. Yeah, thumbs are coming up. Great. Let's start then. Good to see you here on this beautiful Thursday evening. The time that used to be a time I'd get excited about Top of the Pops coming on the television set. Arms by your sides, Tadasana. Breathing through your nose. So just check that camera angle a bit, but you can be in Tadasana while I check. Seen better camera angles, but I've probably seen worse too. It'll do, won't it? You can see, I think. Tadasana Namaskara. That's Tadasana Namaskara. That is to say, with the hands in this namas, this prayer, kara action, praying action. Breathing through your nose, finding the pelvic floor, finding a conversation between the pubic bone and the tailbone. And that's the magical thing, you know, if you really allow it to be a conversation between the pubic bone and the tailbone. A conversation. So that's something in which the breath will be experienced as flow. And it brings the mind into, we might call it attunement. Attunement is one way of putting it. Raise your arms if you're ready, all the way up. Good job. Draw everything you can into the upward movement. So any movements that help with that, bending the knees, moving the pelvis, releasing the roots of the neck, and then taking a big circle back down, hands to the heart, and step your feet apart. Straightforward as ever, feet aligned with the front of the mat, equidistant from the front of the mat. Breathing through your nose. We're going to come forward into Prasarita Padottanasana, that is the forward fold with the legs wide, Prasarita meaning spread out. So if you know you need blocks, you might, I should have said that, but you might want to get them now. Toes spread. Inhale, exhale, hinge from the hip joints, come forwards from the pelvis. Just checking this notification up here. And come down to your fingers. Still breathing through the nose, if you can. Balance between inner and outer foot or feet. Shoulder blades deep. This is Prasarita Padottanasana Ekam, number one. And in this pose, we're, as I said, balancing between inner and outer feet. There's depth in the hips, there's lift in the groins. We might have our hands on blocks because we want the spine open. We're investigating massage of the hamstring muscles. And we're taking the most expressive breaths we can within this explorative movement. Coming to the highest point you can on your fingertips, whether that be on the blocks or the floor, bring your feet a little closer and then ascend. Good job. Walk your feet towards each other while I take off this blue jumper with a blue background. It's not suitable for this kind of activity, is it? Bring your feet back close together. Bring your hands to heart. Back to Tadasana Namaskara. Breathing, if you can, through your nose. When you're ready, go ahead and raise up one leg and reach down and bring your foot into Vrikshasana. That, of course, of the tree pose, Vriksha. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Breathing natural. Inner groin lifted, outer hip in. Gluteal crease deep. Front thigh lifted. So this Vriksha, very beautiful pose, very meditative pose. And you ride the waves of the moment to moment changes. And that's what makes the mind open. And the mind that's open is the mind that flows. The mind that flows is the mind that's not attached. We hear this phrase a lot in South Asian soteriology, that the mind, the enlightened mind is not attached. But we don't always understand that it means flow, here and now. And that means openness. Okay, great. Release your hands, place your foot, take a breath. Or two, or three. Take a few deep breaths. Obviously, when you're ready, go ahead with the other leg, raise that up and bring it to wherever it comes. Obviously, the top of the inner thigh is an option, but it's not the only option. You might also cup the knee as another good option. Or the heel might even just raise up to the ankle. You can even have the ball of the raised leg on a block with the heel somewhere up the leg that way. Breathing through your nose if you can. Enjoying the wobbles. If the mind thinks we're supposed to get to some perfection, it's contrived something that it hasn't understood. It's contrived an idea of perfection without understanding what that even really means. Meaning an idea where everything's aligned, there's no oscillation, there's no movement. But perfection is openness to ride the waves, here and now. So keep breathing free and honest and natural, openness to ride the waves, here and now. So breath is such a major part of recognizing the correct action, which is expressive, spontaneous expressive action. And there's a wealth of exploration that one can partake in here and now. Great, release and place your foot down. Take a deep breath once you have, in case you were holding the breath, and just shake it off. Now, for what we're going to do next, you're going to need a window ledge or a door or a chair, because we're going to come into Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana number 2, that is with the leg out to the side, but with support. So it could be a chair seat with blocks on it. It could be a window ledge. It could be just straight onto a wall. So I'm going to use a door. When you're ready to place your foot at whatever height suits you, you go ahead and do just that. So as I said, a window ledge would do, a chair would do. How high the leg is doesn't matter. Well, it matters that you have the right height for you, that you can both feel a challenge, but you can breathe into that challenge. So too much, you might not be able to breathe into that challenge. There's the option to straighten the arms and breathing. The option to have the palms forwards or up. And in some cases, some people's arms are long, sufficiently long, that even just by flexing their foot back, it might be possible to hold the big toe. Please don't think that if you're nowhere near holding the big toe that there's any kind of problem or that there's any kind of hierarchy here. Remember, the purpose of the postures is to become absorbed or reabsorbed in the field, and that field negates grasping because there's nothing tangible to grasp once immersed in it. Field of interdependence, interdependent field that's experiential, not intellectually postulated, but experienced. Everything is about the breath. I hope we can all enjoy some deep breaths and any movements that support those deep breaths. Lovely. Okay. Release and gracefully bring your leg back down to the floor or whatever you can do in that regard. And obviously you're going to go to the other side. You might have to turn around, or you might have to move your chair. Or in my case, I'm lunging for these shelves over here. So your foot similarly goes up, ideally on the same sort of height, of course. We want the same height on both sides. Breathing through the nose if you can. Again, once you're balanced, you can, if you want, stretch the arms out. It's optional. Don't hold the breath though. Make sure your eyes are soft and the brain is calm. So again, it's Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana. So we've done side 1 and side 2. So if you're coming in a little late, spend a little shorter on each side so that you can do the same amount on each side, because we're about halfway through leg 2. So do leg 1 if you've just come in for a few breaths, and then once you're calm, Swap over to leg 2. Utita hasta pardangushtasana. Pada means foot, of course. Angushta means thumb. So it's the thumb of your foot. And some of you might hold the thumb of your foot, as described before, if you've got very long arms and short legs. That makes it a bit more easy. Okay. If you're ready to come out, by all means, stay a bit longer. Again, gracefully bring your leg down, catch your breath, hands on your hips. Now, we might need a block, actually, for this. So I'm going to come forwards and get myself a cork block. But cork blocks are good. Bamboo blocks are good. Space foam blocks are good. So many different kinds of blocks. Solid wood. I don't know where the solid wood one is. Somewhere else. Anyway, a brick block if you've got one. Otherwise, any kind of block is okay. We're going to be coming into Ardha Chandra or half moon. Because I've got a little limited space here. I'm moving my mat to one side to make sure I've got plenty of space. There's still a good chance that my head will end up in that cheese plant. But that's how it goes. It's as close as I get to cheese these days with this flipping veganism. Oh, I love flipping veganism. Of course, I choose to do it. Back toes in, front foot, leg out. Finish off the turn on the heel. So I've moved right over to give myself plenty of clearance over that way, which of course you should do too. Raise your brick when you're ready. Keep your tummy lightly toned. Inhale, exhale. Coming down, so you can use your brick for your Trikonasana. Not holding the breath, staying meditative, explorative. Some notifications coming up, I presume they're just random, but enjoying your pose. Good. So there's a sort of responsive, intelligent responsiveness, we could call it. The arm, top arm comes down, you bend the front leg, you walk your back foot towards your front leg, and then your block's going ahead of your foot, about the length of the block, and lined up with your 4 outer toes rather than the big toe or the great toe. You've got 3 different height options for your block: full height, middle height, low height. You've got a directional option, so you can change the direction of the block so it goes crosswise on the mat. And there is the choice not to use the block at all, of course. So spoilt, really. Spoilt for choice. Top arm walks along the top leg. And the breath flows. It'd be lovely if the breath just flows. It's a meditation, moment to moment meditation. Centered around breath. Centered around play. And it's Ardha Chandrasana. Lovely. Move through the air as if it was a bit thicker than it really is. About the thickness of a fairly thick custard. Come into your Trikonasana. If you've sort of been thrown out of the pose, come back into it. And just gather your sense of awareness, presence, relaxation. Beautiful. Inhale. Come on up. Feet face forwards. Move along there, please, to the other side of your mat if you need the clearance. You might not. You might have loads of clearance both sides, so no problem. Obviously, in a class, we also consider other people's feet and so on. So I've moved myself over to that side to give myself enough clearance. If you need to do the same, do the same. Down into Trikonasana once you've turned your back toes in, front foot and leg out, heel to arch alignment, stretch, raise, that's it, exhale, enjoy. Meditation. Slow down, bend your front knee. Walk your back foot towards your front foot. And here's where you move the block. Lined up with the 4 outer toes. You've got your 4 options, including 3 height options and 1 directional option for the block. And then you've got the option as well not to use the block if you wanted that option. Extending your top arm along your top leg helps to lengthen the bottom ribs, which in turn avoids side flexion of the trunk, which avoids compression on the facet joints, so that one can actually turn a little bit more easy. So breathing through your nose if you can, not holding the breath if you can avoid it. Jaw, soft eyes, soft brain, soft throat. Great. Move through the air like it was a bit thicker than it really is. Like quite thick custard. I keep mentioning custard. I think it's because I love custard. Well, certainly used to anyway. Inhale, come on up. Well done. Turn the feet to the front. Take a few deep breaths as you walk your feet towards each other. Now, for the next pose, you can use either a wall or a chair. So the chair would be chair back facing you, chair seat facing away. And you place your hands on the chair back before walking back. Or the wall, you place your hands on the wall. As you walk close to the wall, your fingers should be just a little bit lower than the top of your shoulders. And then you walk back. So either way, hands are on a chair or hands are on a wall. In my case, hands are on a door. Walk back and stretch back. I like to lift the heels up for this, for moments at a time. I'm not saying for the whole time. And then really stretch. Open the armpits, inner, outer, under. If you've got the heels lifted, use that to stretch through your back. The heels go backwards, the thighs go upwards, go forwards, supporting any upward action. The upward action on the thighs is continuous, and it's looking for yoga. It's looking for harmony, in other words. So that carries on. The armpits are open wide. They're open wide. The inner armpit stretches, and so does the outer. Everything about this really is same as down face dog. Breathing, stretching. Energetic awareness of flow, not least in the central channel. Well done. Press into the wall or the chair and walk towards it. And take a breath or two. Then we're going to park our bottom on a wall, or I'll park mine on this door again. The feet should be away from the wall or the door or whatever you parked your bum by about the length of your foot. So just check that. You can use blocks, plus you can use a chair. If you want a super comfy version, let me just grab a chair and I'll show you what I mean. You want a really super comfy version, bolstering up the chair to whatever height you need to allow you to draw the buttock pressure out back, lean forwards and rest. I think that's really super. I'd highly recommend it if you've got a chair that's accessible. But as I said, you might have to build it up a bit higher than the one I've got here. Either way, we've got bum on the wall, feet forwards. We've come forwards, perhaps to a chair. I kind of hope you've got one there. But you can do this very enjoyably still without the chair. You can bend your knees if you need to. If the back is tight and tense, bending the knees is a really, really good plan because we want the back to flow, because everything has to flow for anything to flow. So this is Uttanasana. Walking the buttocks out and up the wall, that's definitely helpful. Deep, expressive breaths, plural.
intelligent or sensitive, responsive front thighs. Responsive. How can anything be spontaneous and responsive if it's heavy and weighed down by expectations, demands, projections, ideals? For us to be responsive, intelligent, responsive, we need the mind to be light, lagu, like a dandelion seed. It's just about the time of year now when dandelions begin to show their heads. That's if you're watching this in real time. Some people might occasionally put these up on YouTube. Some people watch them in the distant future. Anyway, spring here, March 21st. So equinox, first day of true spring. And so we can bring a bit of the life of spring into the body, investigating where the body is still in winter, as it were. In other words, tamasa or dull. And through experimenting, bring it to life. Much as this is just a super thing to do, if you're using the chair, lift your head, bring your hands onto the chair seat. If you're not using a chair, bend your knees until your ribs come onto your thighs and then walk up your legs. If you're using a chair, as I mentioned, use the chair to come all the way back up. I kind of hope some of you did get to use a chair because it's very nice. And then put the chair away, if you had one, and come into Adho Mukha Svanasana. That is, of course, downward facing dog pose. So I'm tucking in my t-shirt for the sake of common decency. Up to you, I guess. I mean, you're there at home. It's up to you what you do. But one way or the other, we come into this inverted V shape. And having come into the inverted V shape, we investigate. This is a massive part of yoga, isn't it? Investigative movement, explorative movement. So we're exploring, we're investigating the extension of the armpits, inner, outer, under. And like the last pose, or the pose before actually, the version of Uttanasana with our hands on the chair back or wall, we said that the back of the thighs come forwards as the front of the thighs come up. And that's a very sensitive challenge to samskaras, habit patterns. So the more the back of the thighs go forwards, the more the front of the thighs go upwards, but incrementally, fiber by fiber, like gather more. I haven't mentioned about bending the knees. Of course you can, if you need to. And bringing the palms, again, meditatively, rather than immediately. Bringing the palms to touch the floor all over is meditative in the sense that it should conduce to absorption. Like every pose, down-faced dog has potential to be infinite adjustments. Well done. We're going to bring these shoulders forwards and the hands a little way apart. You can do this on the forearms if you prefer. Some pressure through the wrists is often very, very beneficial. Even when there's difficulty in the wrist, it can be very beneficial in certain times. I certainly find it beneficial. Breathe through your nose. Share the load. Let it move around. Bring your right knee to touch but not land the floor on the floor. And then bring it up and bring the left knee to touch but not land. And then bring that up. Bring both knees to touch but not land. Really meditative, and bring them both up. And then knees forwards and sitting up, obviously using a block between the heels and buttocks if you're tight in the knees. Blanket can be placed under the shins if you're tight in the shins. Breathing through your nose.
deep, natural, investigative, honest, playful, meditative, little rolling, perhaps on your shins, and really making sure that the breath and the body flow together. Breath and body both flow together. Coming into balasana means taking the knees apart, toes touch but don't overlap. And if you've got blocks between your heels and buttocks, which is a valid thing to do, make sure you've got some support in front of you. What we don't want to feel like is we're falling forwards. We want to keep the weight back. So we need to feel the thighs are dropping as we come forward. So do take blocks for your head and even hands. And definitely if you've got a block between the heels and buttocks, you definitely need supports in the front because you're going to be really feel like you're falling forwards otherwise, which we don't want. Take your time, take your time. Let the discipline be a discipline in not going with driven behaviors, driven by social anxieties of various kinds, keeping up with the Joneses, not being isolated, not being separated. These kind of drives are not the drives we go with. Instead, it's the breath. It's the breath. So it's no wonder that I've said so many times that it's all about the breath. Great. Now coming up is exactly the same as coming down in that there's a process of bringing the top of the thighs down. And from there, we're going to lay down on our backs, which I know is something you'll be excited about. We're coming to, oh, actually, no, I'm not going to, sorry, I'm going to reverse that, but I'll let you do it in a minute, of course. I need to do something else if you don't mind. And you might want, for psychological reasons, some cushioning, some padding, for example, a bolster. Right? You might want that. We're going to squat up on the block, just as I'm doing now. Sorry, I forgot the last few poses. We're working towards this, and then I nearly forgot to do this. Breathe through your nose, jaw soft. So this is great. This is, you can use bolster or whatever support in front of you to lean to. It's an opportunity to breathe into any tensions and tightnesses. We're not saying that the body shouldn't have any aches or pains. It might do. And just breathe into them. Then we're going to bring our arms back, and this might be as far as we go. We're going to bring our arms back and push the upper arm, the tricep, right the way under the shin, pushing the shin up and back and bringing the hand down. And obviously, we're going to see if we can do that with both arms at the same time. And so for most of us even, this is a great stretch. We don't need any more than this. Great stretch in the groins, great stretch in the back muscles, something you can really breathe into actually. Tailbone released. Some people like to experiment with lifting up a little higher, just lifting the toes even. And that's interesting. You don't need loads of weight on the hands. And then others feel like, well, I've got this support in front of me. I could just experiment and see if I could lift one foot or even, in some cases, both. And you breathe into it. Breathe into it.
You don't actually have to lift, but just experiment with it. Just for the sun. You've landed by now, I imagine. It's come out and down. Now you get to lay on your back, as promised, slightly delayed. Your hands underneath your head, fingers interlaced. Taking really deep breaths, I hope. Taking really deep breaths. After that marvelous Bakasana, I hope it went enjoyably and interestingly for you. All about the breath, let it come and go. Spontaneous, interested, natural breathing. Flex your hips means lift your feet. Open up one leg, the back of the knee of one leg, and play with the foot any way you like. Circle, half circle, dorsiplantar flex. Up to you. Once you've brought that leg to some sort of point of interest and meditation, then you bring that one down and bring the other one up. And similarly, investigate. There's nothing that could be there that isn't utilizable. Not sure that's a word, actually. Utilizable. That one can utilize for the purpose of yoga. You know, whatever's there can be used as an object of meditation. Bring that leg down, open the angle at the back of both knees and lift your head. I quite like the little curl up. So you could try that if you want. Little curl up. Breathing through the nose. Some people even find it possible to lift the pelvis. Many of us don't, but if you do and you want to, that's a good area of interest or input into the muscles, and therefore a request to the nerves to let go of what they're driving into the muscles. Head back down. Deep breaths, I imagine. Straighten up your legs and swing them if you want, or wag your tail, or move your feet, or bend and extend the knees. It's all about your breath. So the action that releases your breath is the correct action. You see how we ascertain the action that releases the breath. Now, when you're ready, we're going to turn the toes of one leg out and cross that leg over the other one. Right? So cross that leg over the other one and take a breath or two. And we're going to lower that other leg down a few degrees, keeping the lower back intimate with the floor. That's the practice. That's the discipline. It can go down as low as you want, as long as you don't tense up your back. And of course, with the same meditative awareness, the leg will raise back up again. Okay, well done. Same on the other leg. So the other leg crosses over. You might want to catch up with a breath or two. Make sure the lower back doesn't tense up. So that's the meditation, staying with the flowing feeling. Tensing up is like the opposite to flow. Flowing feeling. Great. And then release. Place your feet down. Let me hear a deep breath from you. Maybe two, maybe a few, even sighs. There's a real sense of surrender, I think, which I think is really, really nice. Real sense of surrender. Jaw is soft, eyes are soft, throat is soft. Cactus position with the arms. So that's a bend at the elbow of more than 90 degrees between the bicep and forearm. And then lift up your feet. You've got the option to swing the pelvis the opposite way to the way the legs are going, by taking a big swing, shifting, and then bringing the legs down the opposite way, or just bringing the legs down without the shifting. Either way, I think it's quite enjoyable to stack the knees well, to suck in the tummy, and to breathe the back arm back down. Make sure your neck's not tight. Suck in that tum. Breathe through your nose if you can. Well done. Popping back up. Nice and easy, please. Realign your pelvis. Take 3 or 4 deep breaths. It's nice to just dwell in the breath, I think, after that. I'm going to turn around for the second side, but you don't need to. I'm just doing that because of the camera and stuff. And when you're ready, up comes the knees and the option to swing the pelvis and shift the bum the opposite way to the legs, or just bring the legs down. And then hovering or landing, stacking the knees, sucking in the tummy and drawing it up. So elongating on the, feels like on the inside. I've already said it, but it's worth saying again. It's all about the breath. Well done, everyone. Calmly coming back up. That's it. Scoot the buttocks under. Take 3, perhaps even more expressive breaths, especially on the exhale. It's really nice to really breathe out, really let that happen. The exhales. So deep, expressive breaths. Jaw soft, eyes soft, brain soft. Waiting for the back to settle itself. Waiting for the back to settle itself. Roll over when you're ready. And come up if you can. Nice and easy from the side. Now we're going to sit in Bharadvajasana. Bharadvaja is the name of a sage. And it's worth using 1 or 2 blocks, regular sort of blocks for Bharadvajasana. You sit on the blocks with your legs extended out in front of you. Before swinging the legs to one side or the other. And I think you know, but to recap, Bharadvajasana has the shin or lower leg of one foot to the other. And shifting until it feels meditative. Breathing through the nose if you can. You turn away from your feet, avoiding the tension that might bring your back leg up by breathing in a way that's tension-free. The jaw is soft, the eyes are soft. One hand is crossed over both legs. In this version, there are lots of versions of this pose. Jaw is soft, breathing is expressive. Well done, release. Return, stretch your legs out. If you want a little rub down, I think it's advantageous to give yourself a little energy bath between sides of twists. So that's an all over rub down. It's a redistribution of the energy all over them. Most important of the winds, as they're called, is the Vyana Vayu. It's the all over wind. When that's all over equally, then there's no bias. There's no, we're not caught up. Let's bring the legs to the second side if you're ready. And similarly, make sure the lower shin comes into the foot arch. A lift and a shift of the bum. Mind and body and breath and environment are truly one. It's not a theory and it's not a belief system. It's something you can see for yourself right now. By observing how your breath is, you'll feel how your breath is tied up with your willingness to release or desire to hold on to ideas about the future, ideas about the past, ideas about yourself. Lift and turn away from your feet when you're ready. Breathe
expressive, natural, investigative, explorative breaths. Parigraha means empty of grasping, doesn't it? You know that. So there's a sense of a parigraha, empty of grasping. Eyes relaxed, jaw relaxed. Aha. Now you can hear me. Great. Okay. All good? Thumbs up if it's good. Yeah. Okay. Down face dog. As soon as you're ready.
Not too wide with the hands or feet. So relatively narrow-ish. It's not as narrow as we sometimes go, but hip and shoulder width. And it's not as wide as we sometimes go either. So we're keeping it relatively contained. A sense of sucking the side ribs in, pulling the chest forwards towards the hands, pushing the hands backwards or pushing the floor away. So you push energy upwards through to the hips. Keep breathing. And again, let's experiment a little. Experiment with ways in which you can stretch your armpits and understand that the mind and the body are one thing. You have to incorporate what the mind is doing as well as what the body is doing. Inner armpits, outer armpits, the underside of the armpits. And then these intelligently strong legs, it's meditatively strong. So the body is commonly arrested by samskaras, habit patterns that are based on assumptive ideas in our nervous system. So the more you can reclaim, the more territory, as it were, you can reclaim in the body, the more you can bring more of the front thigh online, the more you're purifying the body of this preoccupation. And that's what we want to keep doing. Just, keep the body, mind, or nervous system just empty. But to do that, you have to challenge. You have to say, can I feel the front thigh of both legs? Maybe you can feel it on one, but is there a leg that's harder to access? That's the one we focus on for a bit, if that's the case. It's not uncommon to find a bias on one side of the body, more awareness on one side of the body than the other. Great, well done everyone. Coming down again to your regular
Kneeling position. Take a few deep breaths. Don't forget you can use a block between the heels and buttocks. Keep the jaw passive. Perhaps a little rolling on the shins. Sometimes that feels good. Perhaps a little rolling on the shins. Jaw soft, thighs soft. Breathing easy. It's all about meditation, which means reabsorption into the interdependent experience. Interdependent experience is not a thought that you can believe in or have doubt in. It's an experience that you can give to, like St. Augustine said. And once you've loosened into the breath like this, then we're going to try experimenting with another exciting pose, as if we haven't had enough excitement, and various stations in that journey. So this is a pose, a similarly balancing pose, but with a different aspect. So we're going to come up, we're going to take the legs relatively wide, and we're going to see if we can bring our arms through the legs. You can bend your knees. Now, it can be difficult to get your hand with the fingers facing forward down onto the floor. So what you can do is use blocks for your hands to come to, like I'm demonstrating with this block here. And this is enough, you know, playing with bringing the arms through, playing with little squats, fairly wide stride, playing with lifting up and down, and so on. This is Bhuja Pidasana. Bhuja Pida. Pida means pressure. You could, some people find it okay, to lean back a bit. And even to take the weight right back onto the hands. Some people like to lift a leg. Some people like to lift both. You can even cross your feet over and then lift. But as I mentioned before, it's enough to come into the initial station where you're working on bringing the arms through the legs with bent legs, playing with that. There's plenty going on in terms of the muscles around the tailbone and the body generally. So variations on Bhuja Pidasana. Longer arms make it easier, which is why the blocks can be helpful if your arms aren't super long. Coming out of the pose, lowering down to your bum if you lifted your feet up, and taking a breath or two or three. We'll come straight into Upavishta Konasana. It's a big pose, that last one. So Upavishta Konasana is Upavishta, means to sit. Kona means corner. So sit and make a corner with your legs. Of course, if you're sitting on a block, which is a great idea, the corner of the block faces straight ahead, just protrudes in front of the pubis. The legs, of course, should be equidistant away from imagined midline. And the toes face up. Fingertips can be on the floor behind you or in front of you. Most of us find hands behind. Turning the hands is very, very useful. But some find, a different kind of sensation when the fingers are on the floor in front. If you're not used to lifting or it feels very difficult to lift, probably best to at least start with your hands behind the pelvis rather than in front. Shoulders are down. Breathing is nasal. Perhaps little movements will help begin to massage little pockets of tension in the legs. And you can even close your eyes if you want. And I think I've said it a few times. It's all about the breath. For some people, it's easy to keep the whole front body open and bring the fingers forward. So that's fine if that's an option that might suit some people. And for some people, it might be a better thing to do because it just ups the ante on the challenge a little bit. But many of us are already challenged plenty. We don't need more. We only need challenge. We don't need, more and more challenge. That's not helpful. We just need enough challenge. So some people extend forwards. That's an option for some. Most of us would find that just too much challenge, not useful, because we can't breathe into it. So take the right choices. The right choices orbit around the breath. It's all about the breath. Upavishta Konasana. Some people even hold the big toes for this and come to wherever they come to, folding forward. That's another meditative option. And of course, you can even do that sort of thing with your head coming down to support. That can work for some. Too high for me, that support. For some, it works really well. Wherever we're comfortable, we'll come slowly, 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 slowly out. And with good fortune on our side, we'll be able to bring our legs back together. Now, if you've got a wall nearby, I'm going to suggest that you use a block like this and put it behind you this way round, between you and the wall, and it touches the floor, but it extends up and it supports your back. So if you've got a wall or a door that you can use, that's useful, or even a sofa that's not, the wheels aren't too movable, heavy sofa. And it's Baddha Konasana. And just as we do the yogi's handshake when we do this with somebody else, we'll do the similar yogi's handshake by leaning forwards and drawing the sacrum really into a deeper contact there with the support. You can hold the big toes or use your hands against your shins to pull your chest up, pulling down on the shins. You can use a belt around the feet, or you can simply rest your arms on the legs. This is Baddha Konasana, but in earlier texts it had a different name, such as Bhadrasana, Bhadra meaning good. So it's a really sort of good seat. Bhadrasana, this is a good seat. Breath deep, expressive, and honest. Some people like to let the feet come apart, like a book that you're opening. And of course, that gives more extension out. Once you felt the extension out, you can return the feet together. But that's for some people that works. Sorry guys, that the whole thing crashed then for a minute, but it looks like you're back successfully. Good, so we're still in Baddha Konasana. Right, we had a little crash there. Breathing easy. I think it's a really powerful pose to spend time in. Keep breathing easy. Eyes relaxed, jaw relaxed. Focusing on the heart center, we'll come into a seated pose that you're comfortable in. It may be Siddhasana, sitting on a regular block. For many people, that comes more easily after Baddha Konasana. So Siddhasana, like this. For other people, other seated positions are more comfortable. As long as you're upright, light, not heavy, breath centered, relaxed. Very important to be relaxed, isn't it? And we're going to send energy up through the central channel. Om, and then we're going to add 3 hongs, which will be in the heart center, so where we concentrate. So the first one will be Om, up through the central channel, and it's very important for this to be successful that you really imagine it starting at the pelvic floor and pushing its way up and coming right out up the crown of the head. And then after that one Om, we'll do 3 hongs, which we'll imagine are seated in the heart center, Hong, which is associated with many deities, bodhisattvas, and so on. Sometimes called the Denu Bija. That's the sound that a mother cow makes to bring her babies back to her. So, Om, first of all. Let's take a deep breath when we're ready. Om. And then 3 hongs after that, so deep breaths. Om. 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 And further deep breaths coming and going. Focusing on being in the heart center. It's lovely to sit centered like this in Rigpa, as the Tibetans call it. The peaceful center away from the eternal movements, just slightly away from that center. There are eternal movements called samsara. We're going to come into our final meditative surrender where we give to the field. And in so doing, the grasping mind finds nothing to grasp to. And when it's not grasping, it falls into its true nature, no longer distracted by the multifarious, ever-changing Prakriti. Prakriti is left to run. So we're going to lay on our backs, ready for Shavasana. It's very important, very interesting practice we find in the Dattatreya Yoga Shastra. So make sure you lay yourself down comfortably. I'll change the lights a bit at this end. It's important to be warm, to be comfortable, to be supported, to be spacious. Blankets and so on, very useful. So making sure you're all of those things, warm, comfortable. Shoulder blades scooted under, so there's a buoyancy, a natural sort of spontaneous lightness in the body. arms released. Shoulders released. Chest released. Tummy through to lower tummy, through to pelvis, released. Buttocks, back of the thighs, back of the knees, and the knees themselves, the knee joints, including the patellas, kneecaps. Soft calves, settled shin bones. Relaxed ankles, relaxed toes. Relaxed toes, relaxed foot arches. Feel as the whole spinal area becomes peaceful and settled, how the head releases entirely. And the body-mind feels as it gives lighter, expanded. Or we give, the less limited we feel. The powerful sensuality of the body, with all its powerful sensations, intimate sensations, changing sensations, sensations beyond thought, point us back to the source of all the power, the mother field, which as we give back to, all our normal senses become an expression of powerful sensations, powerful adjustments. Breath changes, mind changes, beyond self, beyond thinking. The body is a vibrant field of powerful sensual responses that are felt to be codependent with all things. The sensitivity is within and around the body in equal measure. And the field of awakeness around the body senses its complete connection with the field of interdependence that extends between all bodies, all beings, all energies, all manifestation. The spontaneous energy of emptiness. Staying as long as you want is one of the perks. So So please feel free to lay on until the body is fully absorbed and become one. Return to the soul beyond labels. If you want to come out now, that's also fine. Whether it's now, like 5 minutes or in 10 minutes. That process will start with investigative movements, toes and fingers, ankles and wrists. It will end up with bending the legs, scooting the buttocks, taking breaths, before rolling to the left, waiting a while, being settled in the tummy, and then rolling to the right. And it's from the right side that when we come up, we will come up. And either from where you're laying, hopefully you might have more time, or from an upright position, you can either say it internally, feel it in the heart, or say it externally if you agree with the following words. May any benefit that we've gained in our acting in this way go to the alleviation of the suffering of all beings. Om. Om. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. Sorry that I'm transmitting from so close to the sun, but anyway, so hot. Lovely to see you. Look forward to seeing you soon at teacher training or in a course or a class very soon. Mwah. Love you so much. Thank you. Bye. Bye again. Love ya.